All right. I got the feedback now.
Go.
Shit.
Go.
And hey there, hi there, ho there, and a gracious good Saturday morning to you. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour. It is Saturday morning, April 4th, and we are coming to you live from our basements and living rooms and offices and all of that. It's Case here, chiming in as Paulie fights through some feedback issues just briefly. We've got him on the call with us, but seeing if he can't figure that out before he chimes in here. Apologies for any squealing you might have heard to start that off. We've got a packed show for you today. Volleyball wins the ACC championship. We'll talk about that. Women's basketball bows out in the Elite Eight. An unfortunate loss for them, but exciting to have made it that far. Nothing to slouch at for an Elite Eight finish there. So looks like Paulie's back. So Paulie, take it away.
Oh, I hope you guys can hear me okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about today, honestly. A lot of good things that are going on in Louisville sports. Unfortunately, there's some bad in there as well, as we all know if we been following the NCAA tournament. But even in basketball, there's some good news going on lately. So we'll get into all that and cover it all, kind of kick it back and forth a little bit. Got a full crew except for Daryl in here with us today. Daryl's out doing things and was unable to join us, but sent her best wishes to us, so we'll go well. I guess we'll start with the guy who is with us struggling through one. He's playing with pain today with Jeff McAdams. Jeff, you've got the second shot and you're having a little bit of effects from what I understand.
Yeah, everything hurts. My hair hurts, I think. I feel like somebody hit me in the shoulder with a baseball bat to start with, but then just kind of achy and headache and the joints ache. So worth it. Absolutely encourage people to get their vaccinations. It's for the best. But yeah, for that second one, maybe be ready. Clear a couple of days if you can to deal with some side effects. So I'll work through it. I'll be all right.
We won't press you on anything except volleyball today. I made that promise to Jeff before we got the show started. Because he could basically talk volleyball in a coma and in his sleep.
Yeah.
So
don't expect any super deep thoughts out of me on much of anything, but that's pretty much what we call Saturdays. So.
And I would say what would be different than any other week in that aspect there.
Exactly.
Also have Case Hoskins in here with us today. Case had the Saturday morning write-up for Cardinal Couple. He covered quite a few things in there, as we've got a lot of stuff going on in the world of sports. And Case, have you got that first grass cut in yet? I guess that's the big question.
Yeah, 2 in already, actually. And got a new mower yesterday. New riding mower delivered to the house yesterday, so we'll take it out for its maiden voyage this afternoon, most likely. So looking forward to that.
Always fascinated with people who buy riding lawnmowers. I still do not have one, but at my ripe old age, I'm beginning to contemplate the fact of maybe getting one, okay? Because I know the way I feel after an hour of grass cutting isn't usually the best of shape, so let me know how it turns out. Maybe I'll go back and take yours for a test spin and see if I like it, though.
Well, it takes me about, an hour and a half, 2 hours just to mow the yard, and then I've got a lot of fence and a lot of sidewalk, so hoping that I'll be better about weed eating and sidewalk edging regularly when it takes me 45 minutes to mow the whole yard instead. So looking forward to finally, after 2.5 years, joining the neighborhood Good Grass Club this season.
And I'm sure you'll get bonus points for that as well. Also, Jared in the house with us today. Jared's got in-laws in town. Went out and ate with him yesterday. He's going to go eat with them again today. Hopefully they're picking up the tab, Jared.
Yeah, Katie's parents made the trip up this weekend, got in Thursday night. So we'll get to spend Easter weekend with them. And It's actually going to be pretty much most of my family joining us this afternoon, and we picked up some Mark's Feed Store meat, got some sides that are cooking, and we're going to probably head out to Joe Creason Park, which is right around the corner from where I live, and just kind of spread out with some of the picnic tables. And fortunately, pretty much all of us have had either our first dose or both doses of the vaccination, which also is going to work pretty well in our favor.
Certainly, I always want to be safe with that for sure, as our Easter weekend is upon us. And, of course, here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, our governor is opening up some things, but telling us that if you haven't been fully vaccinated, then you should still kind of be careful on what you do. We'll see. It should be fun. I'm going in for my second shot, guys, on Tuesday. And based with everybody I've talked with so far, I wasn't worried at first, but I do get the Moderna shot. I'm just wondering what I'm going to feel like on Wednesday, so we'll see.
Based on my experience, not great. So that's what I got as well.
Hopefully I'm not going to be like Jeff, and hopefully I'm going to, and get through this thing okay on it, but we'll see. Whatever the case may be, I'll certainly probably still be able to do an article on Wednesday, even if it's a short one. We'll find out and see. But hey, as I mentioned, got a lot of fun things to talk about today, a lot of good things, and we'll start it out like we normally do with our scheduling and Twitter information, where Case Hoskins so admirably and aptly does that for us. We're going to turn him loose again on it this week.
Thanks. Personal scheduling. I'm also getting my second shot on Tuesday, so we'll see if it's a work from home day on Wednesday. Might have to talk to my boss about that one. Not that it's particularly effort-inducing to sit at a computer and do what I do all day, but the drive can be a bit onerous at times. Anyway, looking at Louisville's schedule, the track team is hosting the Louisville Invitational that started yesterday and continues through today, all day. Stats probably already pouring in from that event. Lacrosse is in Blacksburg taking on Virginia Tech. That game starting at noon today. Women's tennis is at Notre Dame today. That matchup starting at 1. Baseball hosting the second game of their series against Wake Forest. That one starting at 1 as well at Jim Patterson. And men's tennis also in South Bend, taking on Notre Dame at 1 p.m. today. Softball, hopefully going to turn around their luck, playing a team that's not ranked in the top 25 and not boasting one of the best pitchers in the country. They'll start with their doubleheader this weekend. Today, the first game is at 2. The second game is at 4:30. Both of those with live video listed, so be sure to check out the links for those. Field hockey hosts number 8 Syracuse tomorrow at noon. Before the show started, we were talking about field hockey and how they were 4th in the ACC currently, as the ACC standings are only using spring standings, which is weird, but a win over Syracuse could bolster Louisville's chances at a better ranking there. Baseball wraps up their series against Wake Forest at 12:30 tomorrow. That one's on ESPN2. And softball with their third game of the series against Pittsburgh at 2 p.m. on Sunday. Softball becomes the only sport in action on Monday. Shouldn't have been, but the multiple delays due to the blustery weather up there in the Steel City puts their final game of the series at noon on Monday. Women's golf heading to Charlottesville for the Cavalier Classic. That's Tuesday and Wednesday all day. Baseball with the Battle of the Bluegrass hosting Kentucky at 6 p.m. on Tuesday. And softball has their version of the Battle of the Bluegrass on Wednesday, hosting the Wildcats at 7 p.m. in Ulmer. Track starts the Tennessee Relays in Knoxville on Thursday all day. And lacrosse hosts Duke at the Louisville Lacrosse Stadium at 7 p.m. That one's on the ACC Network proper on Thursday, so be sure to tune into that. Track continues the Tennessee Relays on Friday. Men's golf gets the Aggie Invitational started in College Station. Women's tennis hosts Georgia Tech at noon. Softball heads down to Georgia Tech and has their first game against the Yellow Jackets in Atlanta at 4 p.m. on Friday. Men's tennis taking on Clemson in Clemson at 5 p.m. Baseball bringing in Florida State for their series that starts at 6 p.m. and men's soccer with a game against Clemson at 7 p.m. on Friday. Taking into next Saturday, you've got track and men's golf, both with all-day events, but everything else we'll cover before their events start with next week's show. Moving into Twitter, I tweet is at best case scenario. That's BST case scenario. Jeff is at Jeff McAdams and at Card Couple Radio. Polly is at Cardinal Couple. Jared is at Mr. Anderson Jared. Daryl's at Daryl Faust 4. And as always, as we point out, we've got the Louisville Women's Athletics Twitter list over on the right side of the site. So be sure to follow along with that, particularly for events like track and swimming and diving, because they do a great job of putting their results out live, much better than anybody else can do. So be sure to follow along with those Twitters, either on the website or in your app. So that's it. Scheduling a Twitter.
And certainly a full schedule ahead as a lot of our teams are getting into close to postseason or postseason play. We'll start out with a team today, a squad, if you will, that has earned an ACC championship. That is correct. And that is the Louisville volleyball squad, as they went into action over the last couple of days. And talk about a travel schedule that kind of makes you scratch your head and wonder here. They were busy kids as they first of all started at Miami and then went to North Carolina April 1st and April 2nd, won both matches to claim outright the ACC championship in volleyball. Jeff, I know you're excited about this. Tell us all about this whirlwind trip here.
Yeah, well, first of all, they didn't actually travel to North Carolina. They played versus North Carolina in Miami on the neutral floor. So, yeah, so that's
read it wrong again.
Yeah, we were the home team in that one on the neutral court in Miami. That's how the ACC has arranged this spring schedule. They're bringing 3 teams together and do 1 match a day, round robin over the course of a weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we were in Miami, didn't have to travel. I wouldn't mind being in Miami. It was kind of cold here. So, anyway. A couple of good matches. Miami took a set off of us. We beat them 3-1. We did sweep North Carolina, but had some challenges doing that. Had some close matches in there. The second one went 28-26, for example. So got some extra points in there. North Carolina's a pretty good team. Miami has a couple of pretty good players that keep them in games. Lukashenko, their big hitter, is very good. So it's good. It's a good weekend to be able to take on a couple of pretty good teams and get the wins and clinch that championship. Had to win both games to assure themselves of winning the championship. So.
And, of course, the win that they got yesterday against UNC was a 3-game sweep for them, from what I'm reading here. Close games. But when you take a look at this volleyball team, of course, playing in the split season, like many of our sports are here, no ACC volleyball tournament. I'll also add in here about that as well.
Right.
But they have now earned themselves a trip to go to the championships. Some of the players that you think have stood out for this team and made it possible, Jeff?
Yeah, wow. Tori Delphur's kind of the quarterback of the team as the setter. She has run this team, has kept it all in control, has done some great work in setting there. Iko Jones, you have to give a nod to her for being a big, powerful outside hitter. The Anna Stevenson and Amaya Tillman combo in the middle, and leading the NCAA in blocks per set for a team right now, with Amaya being in third as an individual. And Anna's, I think I saw 34th in that statistical category. So both of them doing extremely well. We're seeing some really great blocking out of the team. You add in those outside pin hitters doing such a great job. Iko, Anna DeBeer, freshman, Claire Chaussee some, and then Mbonu some. It's been an interesting position battle for that outside hitting position. I mean, Aiko's secure there, but like Claire Chaussee and then Mbonu and Beer have all kind of cycled in and out of rotation time more and less during the season. It's been interesting to watch. And seemingly they're all okay with it. So, hey, great. On defense, I think Aiden Bartlett did a fantastic job in the season. Unfortunately, I think maybe her season is over. She did go down with a knee injury late in the first set of the North Carolina match yesterday. I have no information, so this is speculation, but it looked to me a typical ACL injury. So her season may be done and maybe next in the fall. So I hope not. I hope I'm wrong in that, but man, that was the first, when I saw it, that's the first thing I thought. So that sucks. Alexis Hamilton, Libero, still in that position, still doing well there, finishing out her final year of play. And then, again, a mix of other DSs coming in to contribute, and with Aiden Bartlett, Mia Stander occasionally comes into play. Alexa Hendricks occasionally comes into play. CC Rush occasionally comes into play, and these are all players that are contributing well. But Aiden and Alexis have been the backbone of our defensive efforts there.
Jared, I know that you follow volleyball closely as well. One of the things about this team I think that we all need to think about is the fact that in past years we've been a big rival with Pittsburgh. What kind of threat is Pittsburgh anymore? What do we see in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I'd say they're still a pretty solid rival. Just like any team, you're going to have your up and down years, and sometimes we may have an up year, down year. Sometimes they may be the same. But I mean, looking overall, I think Pitt's about 16-4, so they're still having a good solid year, 14-4 in the ACC. So they're still kind of high up in the conference. And if you look back in the fall, we did split that series with them, and obviously we didn't get the chance to play them in the spring, just the way that the pods and weekends worked out. So I'd say that rivalry is still pretty alive and well for volleyball. Just going back, if you really want to look back at the fall where we split that series in October.
In case you were responsible for the write-up today, you covered the matches very well that took place yesterday. Just some of your thoughts and observations on this 2021 volleyball squad?
Yeah, a bit lucky to have gotten some games canceled the way that they did. Like most sports across the NCAA, defaulting to conference winning percentage for the conference title. If Louisville had lost either one of those two games this week, they would have gone from first to third. Pitt kind of punished by playing the most games in the conference. They had the most wins, but were third in the final standings based on their conference winning percentage at 14-4. But Louisville looked pretty good yesterday. Really good hitting percentage at 288. They were actually outblocked by UNC, but Louisville's blocks were a lot more timely, including staving off a North Carolina set point in the second game. And then outside of the blocks, Louisville only had 7 unforced errors, which is a really good number for them, finishing with just 16 total, minus North Carolina's 9 blocks there. The unfortunate thing was service errors. Still a big bugaboo for the Cards. They had 10 yesterday. They had 6 aces, which is a bit closer to the discrepancy than they've had so far this season. A lot of times that number can be 5 or 6 difference on errors to aces. So for it to just be 4 is not terrible. But advancing in the NCAA tournament is going to require not giving away points before the volley even starts. So they're going to have to cut down on those service errors if possible. I mean, it's been like this all season and stretching into last season as well. So I'm not sure it's something you can just flip a switch and stop hitting the ball into the net or bombing it long, but we'll see. As for yesterday's match, I was really encouraged by the third set. North Carolina really used that second game as a motivating factor. They jumped out to a 7-1 lead in the third game, and Louisville fought back and ultimately won by 7 points themselves. So Really, really strong mentally there to hold off the big North Carolina charge and stay focused to pick up the ACC championship.
And we certainly know that Danny Busboom Kelly has come in and done the work to get this to be a squad that is competitive now and a champion. And certainly in the L&N Federal Credit Union scheme of things, where they used to be at, as far as the changes that have gone in there with a limited kind of fan attendance and everything, and not too many people able to witness unless they're watching on ACC Network or ACC Network Extra. What do we know, guys, about being able to follow the NCAA tournament when it comes around now? Do we know anything about being able to watch any of these events, or how are they going to be televised?
I don't know that there's any particular guidance out about that yet. I haven't really looked. I know the Final Four is in Omaha.
The whole tournament's bubbled up in Omaha.
Or is they doing the whole thing there? Okay, I couldn't remember for sure. Okay, so I guess if you want to travel to Omaha, maybe I suspect they'll have some attendance. It will probably be limited. I think what they having for the women's basketball Final Four was about 4,000. They said, just certainly lower than normal for women's basketball Final Four. I suspect you'll see some pretty small numbers for volleyball in Omaha too.
You can get tickets on the NCAA's website. As far as things you can watch, the selection show is tomorrow at 4 p.m. on ESPNU. They'll take you through all 48 teams and where they end up. But no, I like Jeff, don't see anything about TV announcements at this stage.
I think this is one of the sports that is going to be covered on ESPN, part of that package deal they have.
Oh,
so it should be on.
They will all be on ESPN3 at least until you get to the regional finals, when you've got some of them on streaming and some on ESPNU, and then looks like
4 probably on ESPN2.
The Elite 8 on ESPNU, and then the Final Four and Championship on ESPN2.
Okay.
So everything on the ESPN family of networks, most of those are streaming, starting on April 14th. So right around the corner.
We will certainly endeavor to keep our readers up at the Cardinal Couple website on the events that are taking place on that. So make sure and check in each day and see what we've got to develop to you, beginning with the selection tomorrow. Hopefully we get a good draw. Hopefully we can get some things done here to hang some nice banners up in the L&N Federal Credit Union. I guess we could probably segue on into basketball now. If there's anything else about volleyball, guys, anybody got anything else?
I'll be interested to see which. It looks like in a 48 team bracket, 16 teams get a bye. So it'll be interesting to see if Louisville is able to claim one of those top 16 seeds currently in the top 15 rankings. But whether or not they'll claim one of those top 16 seeds and get a bye will be interesting to see.
Yeah. My hopes that an automatic qualifier would.
Yeah, that AVCA coaches poll as of March 28th still had Louisville at 13. They've gone through and won 2 matches since then. And as you just mentioned with the automatic qualifier, they should not move down at this point, which is good. So it is NCAA, and NCAA is no fan of Louisville, so don't be surprised if we end up at number 17.
Yeah, and the AVCA moved us down in the poll when we didn't lose any games too. At one point, we were 13th and then ended up at 14th when we hadn't lost any games. It was like, really? What's going on here? So yeah, I don't feel good enough to bring up a full-on rant, but there we go. There's the beginnings of one.
Well, we'll keep things positive and optimistic, Jeff, and not get you too worked up on a rant. Let's wish our volleyball team the best of luck, beginning with the selection Sunday tomorrow. So, sliding on over to basketball. Unfortunately, as I'm sure all you guys, I know all you guys did, most of you probably listening did, tuned in to watch the Cards play Stanford for a chance to go to the Final Four. That one, the late game on Tuesday night, playing down there in the Alamo Dome. The Cards actually looked quite good in the first half, blowing out to a pretty neat 38-26 lead over the Cardinal. Unfortunately, the second half did not go in the Cards' favor at all, as Stanford getting big games out of Lexi Hull, Kiana Williams, Cameron Brink, and a certain redhead by the name of Ashton Pretchell. Took the Cards down in the second half by 30-13 fourth quarter and won that game against Louisville 78-63. Disappointing, obviously, for Cardinal fans, heartbreaking in a lot of ways. Sad to see Dana Evans' career finally end, although she was brilliant in her efforts with 24 points against Stanford. It just wasn't quite enough for Louisville to do. So let's just kind of kick it around the table here a little bit. Jared, that was a tough second half to watch, wasn't it, buddy?
Yeah, and you look at the first half, and there's a few factors that contributed to that. And obviously, UofL was playing great defense, and their shots were falling. But you look at Stanford, and Stanford's been a pretty solid offensive team and very efficient on the offensive end. Their first half box score, they're shooting 27-28% from the field, but only 1 for 9 from 3-point range, which the way Stanford's season has gone this year is something that you don't expect to last. And I think the talk at halftime was like, how are we going to stop Stanford? Because eventually, when you get to the law of averages, Stanford's going to start making their shots. And they did. That second half was way different. They ended up shooting 62.5% from the field in the second half, 6 of 8 from 3-point range. And a lot of those were contested shots. It's not like we left Stanford wide open with all day to shoot. So that's just Stanford doing their job, knocking down their shots. And then in their game against South Carolina yesterday, they set the NCAA tournament record for most threes in a tournament, and they still have one more game to go. So they're just a strong offensive team, and we kind of knew the second half was going to be a little bit tougher, and it just didn't fall the Cards' way, and some of those shots didn't drop, unfortunately.
Yeah, that 5 for 5 3-point barrage in the fourth quarter was pretty fatal for Louisville. Also, I'll just touch real briefly on this, and then we'll move over to either you or Case or Jeff. The Cards went 1 for 4 from the free throw line. Stanford went 11 for 17. Okay. Once again, Louisville getting disrespected in any type of fouls, and then the area that I thought was very, very telling too is they out-rebounded us 45-37. Stanford's height and Stanford's length basically and ultimately made the difference, I think, in this game. Case, what say you on it?
Well, trying to find the exact box score for Stanford versus South Carolina last night. But Tara Vanderveer complained about fouls against Stanford last weekend. And since then, Stanford shot a lot of free throws, and their opponents have not shot a lot of free throws. So take that for what it's worth. Louisville, despite the free throw disparity, had every chance to win this game. That's a weird thing to say when they lost by 15, but they led by 14 with 7 minutes left in the third quarter, and then kind of forgot how to play basketball. Turned the ball over a lot there in the second half. They had, actually, I say they turned the ball over a lot. They only had 4 turnovers in that second half, but only got 2 out of Stanford. Even on blocks, just completely obliterated on the boards by 9 in that second half. Gave up a ton of second chance points. And they just couldn't get anything going on offense. We talked about how they only shot 30% in the second half compared to 62% for Stanford. And Stanford shot 77% in the fourth quarter. So it was just unfortunate. Not what we've expected to see from Louisville. They were the more mentally tough team in their last or in their previous games in this NCAA tournament, having to fight back from some deficits there, and especially in that Oregon game, holding off a very desperate Oregon team that was down a bunch of starters and just completely putting a chokehold on that game. And then against Stanford, just let their foot off the throat, and that was the end for them, unfortunately. I mean, Stanford's a very good team. They weren't the number 1 overall seed in the tournament for nothing, but just a very lackluster performance in the second half to lose by 27.
Yeah, one of the things about that Stanford and Louisville game, Jeff, that also stood out to me as well. Second chance points, Stanford beat the Cards 23-8. And points in the paint, Stanford with a 38-24 advantage. Once again, just going to the ball with the length and the height, and kind of just dominating the Cards on any type of second chance opportunities.
Yeah, really, the rebounding and second chance points, it really felt subjectively, just looking at watching the game, just really felt like the difference maker in this game. UofL got one shot at making a basket each time down the court, basically. If they missed a shot, Stanford was generally going to rebound it. I know the stats don't show that absolutely, but it was predominantly Stanford on getting the rebounds and on defensive rebounds and keeping us off the boards. And you're not going to do well. Either you have to shoot insanely well to beat a team like that, or you have to get in there and get some rebounds and get some second chance points. And UofL didn't do either of those things. And, that pretty much made the difference in the game, I think.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback off of that real quick, I think that the perception of Louisville or Stanford's height winning the game for them, while it did play a huge part, in that second half, they out-rebounded Louisville by 9. And the leading rebound getter was Haley Jones with 7. Second was Lexi Hull with 4. Cameron Brink had 0, and Fran Bellaby had 1. So we've talked about how we expected Louisville to out-hustle Stanford and utilize their speed and their effort on the boards to win those battles, and it just didn't happen. They just didn't have that extra gear that we've seen in the other games in the second half against Stanford. Stanford just was more motivated to win this game in the second half.
And I also think you could take a look at the Cardinals in the aspect of where Dana had a great game for us, but after Dana, the numbers just kind of dropped off a little bit. Well, Kiana Smith, 8 points, 3 for 11 shooting, though. It's just not what you expect out of her. She did get 7 rebounds, but Haley Van List 7 points. Costa Robinson has 7 points, which is good for her. Normally, you don't expect to see that many out of her. But when we take a look at the post, the area where the Cards needed to be big at, you had Cochran 1 for 6, you had Dixon 2 for 4, and they combined for just a total of 6 points. So, Jared, that might be kind of telling there as well.
Yeah, when the rest of your team is, I guess, underperforming, maybe is a good way to put it. It makes it tough because you can't put all the pressure onto one player, which we did most of the season. We relied on Dana most of the year to carry us through the tough moments, and Dana put her full effort into it. I mean, she did go 6 for 8 from 3 this game, so quite a remarkable feat in itself right there. But I mean, when you've got players that are going 3 for 10, 3 for 11, 1 for 6 from the field, and not being able to get that double-digit mark, but then also not being able to help out in other ways on the court with rebounds or assists, steals, disrupting Stanford's offense, it's not doing you any good. And that's what we saw, especially in the second half. And I think Case kind of mentioned that a little bit. Is just Stanford wanted it more, and I guess our heads were in the clouds for a little bit.
A sad end of the season, but nevertheless a very, very good season for Louisville women's basketball. 26-4 on the year, 14-2 in the ACC, and certainly we'll long remember and always think very fondly of the Dana Evans effect on this squad. came in here as a kind of a good but not great player for the team right off the bat. She came in off the bench her freshman year, but assumed control of this team, and I think now she's earned that status of being one of those one-name players in Louisville history that you can put up there with Angel, of course, and with Shoney and Maisha. Definitely add Dana to that bunch there, and certainly wish her the best in the WNBA draft that's coming up, I think, in about 2 or 3 weeks. Hopefully she'll get a very good team to go with. Some people are thinking it might be the Liberty, and wouldn't that be something to see her on the Liberty with the Cardinals that are already on that squad? That would be fun. So we look at a final here in the NCAA tournament taking place tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. The upstart Arizona Wildcats, who not too many people, I do believe, picked to be in that final game, will go up against Stanford. Certainly a team that, they've gotten that far. I know South Carolina might be a little bit upset about that, but that's needless to say one of those things that happen in basketball. The shots just didn't go in for South Carolina in their game. Is this Stanford's tournament, guys? Are they going to win this thing?
Well, they've already beaten Arizona twice by a combined, 40-something points. I think that we've seen in the past, usually when teams get that third opportunity, it's not usually a better result. Louisville having to play UConn 3 times in the same year in both men's and women's. The losing team on the end of that first 2 games usually does not turn it around by some miracle in the third game. So yeah, I'd say that Stanford should walk away with this one, but then again, I thought UConn was going to dog walk Arizona last night, and that didn't happen at all. So maybe the Wildcats have just a little bit more magic in them. Kind of crazy that this is only their 8th NCAA tournament, and they'd never made it past the Sweet 16, and they haven't made the NCAA tournament since 2005, and they're going up against perennial powerhouse Stanford, who's, making it to their umpteenth national title game and their first national title since 2010, though, and seeking their first title since 91, or 92, pardon me. But yeah, I think Stanford's going to win this unless Arizona can just. I don't know what Arizona would have to do. I would say if they could come out and just beat the brakes off of them in the first half, then they'd have a good chance. But that's what Louisville did, and it didn't work. So who knows?
I think Ari McDonald for Arizona is going to be the key for them if they're going to have any chance at all. She's got to continue to be having the big games that she's had in this tournament so far. Certainly some post play would help, but Stanford, oof. I'm in your boat, Case. I don't see how Stanford loses this thing. What do you think on it, Jeff?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think if Arizona comes out and plays the way they played against UConn last night, strong defense, lots of blocking out on rebounds, I think they have a shot. Right? They're riding high right now. Obviously, it is likely to go Stanford's way. I think Stanford overall is a better team. Whether they will be the better team for the championship game is the big question, though, and I'm not sure that's a given. Obviously Stanford's going to be the favored team. I was in New Orleans in 2013 for the Final Four, women's Final Four, and I was riding the trams, and there was some UConn fans on the trams. Of course, I was there. It was for UofL Final Four. I had my UofL gear on, of course. And, struck up a conversation with some of these UConn fans, and they said, do you really think you're going to beat us? Right? Which is pretty arrogant to begin with. But I said, my response was, well, that's why they play the game, right? And, we didn't, but that's why you play the game, because it only matters what happens on that one night. So, yeah, I think Stanford is likely to win this, but, man, Arizona was heck of a lot of fun to watch. I would love to see them win this. It would be so much fun.
It would be a big surprise to women's college basketball, Jared.
Yeah, I think now would be a good time for maybe them to reach out to UMBC, the team that upset Virginia in the men's tournament a few years ago, and just say, hey, what were your thoughts when you're going into this game against a powerhouse and the overall 1 seed, and how were you able to stay calm and collected and focused, and maybe just focus on it. Sometimes I think you need to look at it more from the mental and psychological aspect versus in terms of talent and your physical size, because you're going to win or lose this championship game before you step on the court. You've got your big-time underdog Arizona going up against your Goliath in Stanford, and with Tara Vanderveer going and setting the new all-time record for wins as a coach, and she's looking for, I believe, her 3rd national championship. I mean, it's the ball's in Stanford's court right now, and it's up to Arizona to come in and be like, hold up, we're not going to just sit back and let this happen. So if you're Arizona, you got to come in confident. You got to believe in yourself. If things don't go your way to start the game, you can't panic and I think this is over. You got to stay calm and collected and focused. So it's going to kind of be up to what Arizona does and how they're able to prepare and handle this game tomorrow.
Preparation is a key in any sport, especially in basketball, knowing your foe and doing the things necessary to take advantage of the things that your foe doesn't do so well. We'll see how it turns out. I'm not going to take a score prediction or anything on this, guys. Don't worry. I think we're all pretty solidly aligned in the fact here that Stanford is the team to beat against Arizona. So let's see what we get here. Let's see what happens. Arizona was able to shut down Miss Paige Buckets, as they like to call her, the freshman phenom who became the AP Player of the Year. We'll see what they can do with Ari McDonald. We'll see what happens. Moving on into other sports and other activities here. Field hockey. Hey, guess what? They're going to be back in town at a Traeger tomorrow, Easter Sunday, bringing in Syracuse, the Orange. They will take on the Orange at, let me see if I can see the time. I didn't see a time on this. Jared,
should be noon.
Jared's got
12 noon.
Okay. Playing Syracuse at noon. Over at Traeger, they come into this game, Syracuse does, as number 8 in the nation. They've got an 8-4 record, and they're 1-0 in the ACC after beating Duke in their spring opener back on March the 27th. In this split season at field hockey, is they're 3-0 in the spring. S.J. Quigley, of course, obviously a very, very good player for them. Remember her from last year. Also, Charlotte DeVries and Laura Grazioli is also a very, very good player each. 2 good scores. And the Cards, of course, coming in. We're almost number 1. Jared, are you going to get out and catch some photos on this tomorrow?
No, I'm still enjoying a few days off from photography. Katie's family will still be in town, and I think they're going to hit the road about 1 or 2 o'clock. So I'll spend a little bit of Easter Sunday with them. So I'll see if I can't catch part of it on my phone watching online, but I will not make it out for photos. But I will be at women's soccer next Saturday for their final home match.
The Cards coming into this game actually lost their last time out up Saturday afternoon last week after a penalty stroke in the 4th quarter against number 16 Boston College. Led the Eagles to a 1-0 win. Just kind of a heartbreaking loss for Louisville when it comes down to something like that late in the game where they award a penalty stroke and not a penalty corner either. This was just line her up right in front of Sam Minworth and fire away. That was a disappointing one to me, Case. What did you think about it?
Yeah, Louisville's Louisville's fall season was really punctuated by a lot of scoring. They weren't shut out in any of their games. They didn't score fewer than 2 goals in any games except for the loss to Syracuse in the last game of the regular season. And then coming out into this spring season, their biggest scoring effort was 5-0 against Ball State. But other than that, they were shut out by North Carolina. They only scored 2 against Virginia. They only scored 2 against Miami of Ohio. And they actually only scored 1. They get that second goal added because they had the shootout victory, and then another shutout against Boston College. So the struggle has really been offensive for them in the spring, and I don't know exactly what it is that has changed in that time to make the offense kind of stumble a bit compared to where they were in the fall. But that's the struggle that they're currently going through, is finding their offensive identity wherever they left it, somewhere along the highway system. Maybe on their way back from Chapel Hill from the ACC Field Hockey Championships last fall, but they got to get that figured out if they want any hope of trying to compete in the ACC. I don't think that if they lose this game against Syracuse, they for sure won't, but it's going to be tough for them, even if they win out, to be eligible for that ACC championship game, taking on North Carolina, presumably in the second ACC championship, which I guess is just to determine the automatic qualifier for the NCAA tournament. But if they can't get their offense figured out and they stumble across the finish line in these last 3 games, they're going to be hard pressed to find themselves in a good position for an NCAA draw with the small tournament that field hockey hosts.
Yeah, when you take a look at this after Syracuse, the Cards will finish on the road, going to Duke, and also going to Wake Forest before that ACC tournament on the 24th. To get to the scoring lack of productivity, you and I, and Jeff, you can chime in on this as well. We all know that this team basically rolls through what Meche Pastor does. If Meche is not scoring a bunch of goals, I don't think the Cards are going to be scoring a bunch of goals. So we've got to kind of get Meche on track here in these last 3 games, I think, boys. Would you agree with me on that, Jeff?
I think that I think there's some truth to that. I think it may be a little bit of an overstatement. We do have other players that contribute and score, so it's not absolutely critical that Meche be scoring and carrying the team. But she obviously is a very prolific scorer. She's a very fine player. She's incredibly talented. Oh my goodness! And when she is doing well, when she is aggressive on offense, she changes the game. So I think there's truth in that. She can change the game and make it go better for the Cards. But I think sometimes I've seen her playing and be quadruple teamed, right? She's probably not going to score in those situations, but by pulling 4 defenders to her, she's opening up the field for other players. So I don't think it's necessarily scoring per se, but being that scoring threat. That's probably the critical part.
Yeah, I think she's one of the ones that you've got to respect if you're an opponent, no doubt about that. But I can also get the other aspect of it too, where if you're paying so much attention to mates, maybe somebody else can step in and do some things. Nevertheless, a good season so far for field hockey if they can finish these 3. Let's face it, like in lacrosse, like in field hockey, you've got North Carolina, and then there's everybody else. Okay. Not taking anything away from the Tar Heels one bit, but hey, if we can go into this thing with a 3-game winning streak, maybe we get a break in the tournament. Maybe somebody knocks off NC before we get to them, and maybe we can get them if we try again. It could be interesting to see. Moving on over to a little lacrosse action here. The lacrosse team had something which is kind of rare for them. They played back-to-back games up in Boston last time out. The first game, a very exciting contest that actually went into overtime before BC pulled it out in the overtime session. And then there was the second game in this, and I think it would be a second game that most people would just as soon forget about. Okay.
What was there? They played a second game? I don't remember. I don't remember that.
I gotta know what it was. They were playing football, and Boston College Eagles kicked 6 field goals to beat
Compared to
Louisville
Louisville's
18-3. Yeah, and they
Okay,
did get one
Christmas.
field goal. 18-3 case.
I don't know. I was watching Highlander 2 and Matrix 2 and 3. So
The way that game went, the way that Louisville was so poorly handled by Boston College, it would seem more like Louisville gave up 2 touchdowns and then got 2 safeties to give Boston College their 18 points.
I interviewed Teeter after the 13-14 loss on the 26th, and he was very optimistic about how that would go 2 days later, and just decided that we weren't going to interview Scott after that 18 loss. Just didn't quite happen. But they returned to action on Monday. They'll be playing at Virginia Tech. The Cards lacrosse team still searching for that elusive first ACC win. Jared, have they got a chance to beat Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech?
Yeah, I think lacrosse just about every game has had a good chance at winning, so I don't want to count them out at any point. And just being ACC, it's going to be tough. Virginia Tech's another top 25 opponent. We handled ourselves well, as you mentioned, against Boston College in that first game. Second one, not so much. We handled Virginia pretty well when we fell to them by 1. Put up a pretty solid fight against Notre Dame and had a couple good looks against North Carolina. So it's there. I think the talent and skill levels there, and they're starting to believe in Teeter's system. So they're on the right track, and I think that's possible. Playing on the road is always tough, especially in the ACC. So I wouldn't be shocked if they lose, but it would be a nice treat to see them win, which is possible.
Well, we certainly hope that the latter is the fact that they do win. After the Virginia Tech game, they'll come home for 3 in a row, facing Duke, and then another one of those back-to-back opponents with a day in between when they play Syracuse before ending up on the road at Notre Dame. If you haven't been out to a lacrosse game, I think they've opened those up a little bit, if I'm remembering correctly, where there's a little more attendance involved in those. So, fun sport, a lot more scoring if you're a scoring aficionado than there is in field hockey. So you can go out there and see anywhere from 25 to 30 goals a game. So that's pretty neat.
I need to rectify something I said during scheduling. I said that game against Duke on Thursday was going to be in the Louisville Lacrosse Stadium, but I was incorrect. Since that is an evening game starting at 7, that one is in Cardinal Stadium again. So another big under-the-lights opportunity for lacrosse.
Yeah, and hopefully ACC Network will pick up on it as well.
It is carried by ACC Network.
So if you can't get out there to watch that one in our football stadium, certainly you'll be able to watch it on ACC Network. But I did not get a chance to make it out there to see us play under the lights against North Carolina because of knee issues. May not be able to make it out there for the Duke game, but we'll kind of see. Hopefully things will be going well there, and I can get out there. We'll give it a try anyway and see what happens. Softball, another area where we haven't talked about yet, and kind of taking a look at what is going on with softball. The Cards have been suffering from lackabaditis. No, that's not a disease. It just means they're not hitting the ball worth a darn. Virginia Tech in 10. Cards managed a total of 3 runs in 4 games against them. When Clemson was in 10, the Cards managed a total of 4 runs in 4 games. In case it's disturbing.
Yeah, I was going to say at least against Virginia Tech, all 3 of their runs came in 1 game. And they managed to win one of them. But yeah, 3 runs in 4 games, like you said, 4 runs in 4 games before that, and that game against, or that series against Clemson was almost the length of 5 games with that 11 inning opener. So they've scored 7 runs in a total of around 9 innings worth of games, and that, or 9 games worth of innings. Sorry, that's not great. You're not going to win games when you're averaging less than a run a game. You're certainly not going to win games when you're averaging less than a run a game and your opponents are averaging around 3 runs per game, maybe close to 4. It's not been great. But like I said, finally getting an opportunity to play against a team that isn't necessarily a top-ranked team, doesn't have a top-ranked pitcher. They're going to have a chance to finally get off the schneid here against Pittsburgh. Maybe getting out of town, getting out of their own heads, getting away from Ulmer Stadium is going to help them too. It's really cold in Pittsburgh though, so I don't know how much that'll help their bats, but that's what they've got to go for. They've got to do something to just break that rut they were in with those last 2 series and try to get something going. You want to get motivated, want to have some reason to be excited before they go into that game against Kentucky. Which is going to be a really tough game. Kentucky's a good team, and you want to perform well against your in-state rival. So this series against Pittsburgh is going to be really important, and I think they're going to have to start today, jumping right out of the gate on the Panthers and try and get those bats working.
They were actually scheduled to start that series yesterday, but due to the inclement cold weather up in Pittsburgh, unable to get it started. Jared, you've been at and taking a lot of photos of softball this year. Some of your thoughts and observations. What's going on with the Cardinals' bats here? I know they faced good pitchers on the Clemson and the Virginia Tech squad. Is that the whole reason behind it? What's happening here?
Yeah, the Louisville pitching has been one of the strengths of this year's team, and there's been quite a few pitchers to see the circle recently, obviously with Taylor Roby kind of being your premier pitcher, and Jen Linhart having some solid innings and acting more as a closer. You're seeing Gabby Holloway get some innings. We've had a couple others that have seen some time here and there too. It's just the coaches are trying to find some time to give Roby and Linhart and everybody a rest. And when you're getting beat to death, sometimes you don't want to keep your star pitchers in there and the risk of injury or whatever else may happen. Defensively, other than that most recent game where I believe they were officially credited with 5 errors against Virginia Tech, defense has looked pretty solid too. It honestly has just been the hitting. It's been bad. I think Case mentioned already 7 runs in the last 8 games. So 7 total runs, and since we've kind of started true ACC play is sad. We're seeing more strikeouts and we're seeing hits. When we do find a way to get runners on base, whether it's via hit, walk, error by the opposing defense, we can't bring them in. I mean, we're stranding runners on base like nobody's business right now. It's obviously frustrating for the coaching staff, for the players, for the fans. And you've got to do something. You've got to find that spark going. And I know Holly April's been messing with the lineup, just trying to find somebody to really get going, because some of the players that we've seen step up and play really well in the past may not be doing so this season. And just seeing new faces get flipped around and hope to find something. Thankfully, just looking ahead against Pittsburgh, pitching has not been Pittsburgh's strong suit this year. I think in their last 12 ACC games, they've given up over 50 runs. So maybe we'll see something a little bit better for Louisville with the offense. But if you can't hit the ball, can't bring your runners in, you're not going to win the ball game. Simple as that.
That's right. You got to put them across the plate in order to obviously get a win.
38 left on base in those games. Those last 8 games, 38.
Just think if you could bring a third of them in, you're winning half of the ball games right there just by knocking in 13 runs. I mean, some of these games came down to 1 or 2 run game.
The game that the opener against Clemson that they went 10 innings before anybody scored a run. Louisville left 11 runners on base. You just got to get one of those in at some point to win the game, and just couldn't make it happen.
Take nothing away from Clemson's pitcher, though. She was pretty incredible, one of the best in the league. But yeah, once again, you got to hit, you got to run, you got to touch them all, you got to score. Also, real quickly, just kind of some interesting developments on the berm out at Ulmer Stadium. Got some new directives for fans attending out there who watch from the berm. Jared, you can kind of fill us in on this slap of the wrist by the Louisville administration on people who gather out there.
Yeah, so early season, other than posting a few signs out there on the berm that are asking people to wear a mask and social distance, I guess maybe you were running into some legality issues because it's not technically inside the stadium, but you could argue that it's still University of Louisville property, where the fans were not doing what they needed to. A lot of them were without masks, and a lot of them like to get close together and hang out. It actually got to the point that a few of them were enjoying some cigarettes and cigars, and when the wind blows the right way, it comes out onto the field, and we ran into some issues there. And I think the administration and facilities folks have just kind of grown a little tired of it, because you may not have a lot of power if you don't kind of put your foot down early on and say, here's our rules and what we're going by. So I think by releasing this, it's giving UofL a little more power and authority to say, hey, if you're not going by what we've released and by our statement here, then we have the right to remove you from campus property and escort you out of here. So I can understand why they're doing it, because you do have some fans that may not be taking this situation seriously, because we still are in a COVID-19 pandemic. And when you're looking at these parents also will crowd around after the game right outside the stadium to talk to the players, that's obviously not a smart situation either, as you've got dozens of people all close up together. So this is a good way to help UofL get things under control and continue to protect the student athletes and coaches and staff.
That student safety, absolutely one of the most important things we can ask for. So if you're thinking of being a bermer, make sure and follow the rules and instructions that Louisville provides for you. All right, guys, we have reached the magic hour here of 12 o'clock plus a few. So we can kind of roll into some final thoughts and items of that nature. Jeff, you've been kind of quiet there, and I know that you kind of wanted to beg off of some things today, but hopefully you can rally to give us some of your final thoughts.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to selection show tomorrow night. It's always fun. I love volleyball so much, which is no secret, and it's an awful lot of fun. Hoping I'm feeling a little better, to be able to enjoy it a little more. Get your vaccinations, folks. I feel like crap today, but it's worth it. Ultimately, it's worth it. Let's get this thing behind us, and it's not just for yourself; it's for everyone to do it. So, yeah.
But Jeff's a trooper. He hangs in there and continues. He's playing on the IR a little bit today, but certainly did a great job for us. We'll go. Case, some final thoughts from you, sir?
Yeah, I just wasn't sure that we gave Dana quite enough love, because she deserves all of it. Funnily enough, while you were talking about her getting drafted, I did look up ESPN's most recent mock draft has the Liberty trading out of the first pick, but taking Dana with the 6th pick in the first round. But just wanted to shout her out. She's claimed a couple of more All-American titles. I think she's well on her way to being a unanimous All-American this year, which is well deserved in her senior season. We talked a little bit about her in our text group that she probably should have won Player of the Year. Ultimately, the struggles that she had in the first couple of rounds of the NCAA tournament and the struggles she had in the ACC tournament did not contribute to her campaign for that. But fantastic player, like you said, in the likes of Angel and Asia and Maisha and Shoni, a player that's going to be remembered, player that will be emulated by future Cardinals to come. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of girls that want to attend the women's basketball games wearing really long eyelashes and painting their nails bright pink to honor Dana. So congratulations again to her on a fantastic Cardinal career. She did announce for sure that she's going pro, so looking forward to seeing where she ends up in her future.
And to add a little bit of humor to the whole situation, of course, we love Dana to death and always will, but I actually did see a t-shirt that had about 4 or 5 eyebrows on the front of it that said, "Hey, I ran into Dana the other day." Okay. Boy, what a tough audience you are. All right, Jared, final thoughts. Bail me at your pal.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this basketball tournament was a little rigged, so I could not win the Cardinal couple pick'em. So I'm gonna throw out a challenge there, but no, it's been a really good tournament to watch, and UofL had some strong suits. I may tune in to watch Stanford and Arizona a little bit tomorrow, and just kind of an update with those brackets real quick. Paul still has the lead by a hair over Kenny Schneider. Paul's bracket is done. He's solidified a 49 win bracket, which is quite remarkable. That's a winning percentage of 778. Kenny Schneider right behind him with 48 wins. Does have Stanford winning tomorrow night. So if Arizona pulls off the win, Paul will take first in the bracket, and if Stanford gets a win, then Kenny will finish tied with Paul. But based off of the entry times and the tiebreaker, Kenny would get the win in the brackets.
All right, yeah, my teams are dead, so I'm waiting on the kindness of strangers in order to get me the W. Final thoughts out of this, I'm going to kind of take you in a different direction. I have been a fan of Bojangles for quite a long time. I received very, very good news about a week ago because I'm on their mailing list when they proudly announced that they were going to build in Louisville. Yes, they are in Shepherdsville. Yes, they are in Shelbyville, but they are coming through Hurstburn Lane in Louisville, Kentucky, right about where the old Steak and Shake used to be out there that temporarily closed 2 years ago and still hasn't reopened. That now belongs to Bojangles people. They're going to tear it down and rebuild out there in J-Town off Hurstburn Parkway, and I'm very excited about that. I will certainly be in attendance, so if you've never tried Bo's before, you owe it to yourself. At least give it a go and see what you think about it. But that will do it for us today. Certainly have had a good, nice roundtable discussion on things, and we'll catch you this same time next week, unless you know something we don't. Everybody have a great weekend, and happy Easter to you all. Go Cards.